Okay, let's talk about some best practices when it comes to working with other people. And I think some of these are not really going to shock you. And it actually occurs to me, I have a whole list of notes of things that I should reference that I definitely should have pulled up before I started this video. But here we are. Boom, there we go. All right. When you're working with other people, we're going to break this down into two groups here. So interpersonal skills and technology guidance. There's a little bit of overlap, but uh, yeah, well, there's a reason we broke them down. So first and foremost, relationships. It is not so much that the we need to be solution oriented and problem focused. It's that people want that human connection. My job, what I do for the majority of my day, can be replaced by YouTube. I just made the joke in the previous video about me Googling or YouTubing an answer right before I talk to a teacher. Yeah, it's because that's not actually my job. My job is to coach and blend good teaching with technology. But oftentimes that means troubleshooting tech, like how to use this tech tool, right? People know they could Google those answers, but they still email me. It's because we want a human connection. And that is the currency that life runs on, relationships, right? So this might mean that someone comes in and you chat with them about the weather or their favorite hobby for the first hour or two that you're meeting with them, hopefully on separate occasions. Developing that relationship and that trust, so important. And once you have that established, then you can start to do these other things. Encourage persistence and exploration. It is terrifying and frustrating to use a brand new tool with no guidance. But if we can convince people, and I'll come back to this at the end, but that there's no self destruct button. I have yet to see someone push a button and a computer blows up. It just hasn't happened yet. There's very few, if anything that you can do that will just shut the computer down and break it. And it's irreparable. So encouraging persistence and failure and learning from that, that's the best way to go. When working with adults, there's a few things that we know are true. And if you think of this training, hopefully I've incorporated them. You need to value prior experience. Notice I started off this training by asking what you want to get out of it. And I am taking that seriously. This training was built based off the feedback of people who've already gone through something similar. Value prior experience. That way people know that they are what matters, and then provide a takeaway. This training has been dripping with resources and there's more out there. And hopefully I've made that clear. Adults need something that they can walk away with from an experience. So we know these two things. Sorry, we know these two things about adult learners. They need to have their prior experience validated because that is important and it is valuable. And two, they need to be able to walk away with something. So if you can think about that with every interaction, what does this person need? How can I hear them? And what can I give them to walk away that's concrete? Know that this one's more about you. You don't need to know everything. You might know a lot. They're not always there for your knowledge, right? They are there for a human connection. So balancing what you know with what they need is very, very important. But on the other end of that spectrum, I hear this all the time. Well, I don't know how to use all of these tools. I'm not an expert user. I'm not techie. So how can I help someone else? There's always someone who knows more than you. There's always someone who could use the expertise that you have. Do not be afraid or hesitant to jump into this work just because you don't know everything about everything. No one does. So don't let that stop you, and model that failure, model that growth mindset, and show some vulnerability. And finally, just to wrap up, because it is important, there is no self destruct button. It is okay to push buttons. That's how kids learn. That's why we say kids are digital natives or kids are so techie. It's because they have unlimited amounts of time and all they need to know is where the back button is. It's a big red X or a left facing arrow. Once they figure that out, they can learn anything because they know how to undo their mistakes. They don't know enough about the world to think that like I can push something and it's just going to end everything. It's just going to blow up because it doesn't really happen. So it is okay. Know that there is no self-destruct button. Do not be afraid to take risks. When it comes to actual tech help, so those are more the interpersonal things. Don't touch their device. So if they have their cell phone and they're working on their cell phone, do not take their cell phone out of their hands. I am so guilty of this. If I'm working behind someone and I'm frustrated or I'm tired or things are just going a little bit too slow, I'll say, hey, do you mind if I drive? And I take over the keyboard. We're not teaching them anything. And that's not even the worst that could happen. It's demoralizing. Someone did it to me the other day. They said, well, here, let me show you. And they hopped on my keyboard and I was like, they took all of my agency. I knew how it was frustrating, frustrating, right? So do not touch somebody else's stuff unless they specifically ask you to. Even then, hesitant, right? Model on your own device first. So let me show you here and you can walk along. That's how we build learners, but it's also how we give agency to the people who we're working with. Uh, we talked about this a little bit, but that privacy issue is a fine line that we walk. If they're putting in their password, make a point to turn away and not look at them putting in their password or try to figure out, not that you're trying to figure out their password, but make it obvious that you're not looking at their password. If they share it with you, it is what it is, right? But how can you respect their privacy, not just in that telehealth space, but in general? And again, I mentioned this before, model failure, be transparent with your mistakes. Oops, I don't know this either, but I'm learning. We're going to figure this out together. Super, super important. Okay. Next piece here is your final scenario. So I'm going to stop. This video has gotten a little bit long. Watch this. And there'll be some final instructions. We're almost done here, ladies and gentlemen.